It's been a very long time since I've done a video on author J.K. Rowling. I feel like I don't have to tell y'all who this woman is by now. If you are of a certain age, you definitely know who she is. But for those of y'all who are too young to know who she is the famous author of one of the most, I guess you could say, most popular, iconic set of books ever written that ended up turning into a saga known as Harry Potter. Yes, I am a fan of the Harry Potter movies. If a Harry Potter marathon was to come on right now, I probably would probably drop everything that I'm doing just to watch it, as if I haven't seen the movies a bunch of times. So, in case y'all are unaware, I do like those movies. But we're not here to talk about Harry Potter. Now, J.K. Rowling has become a rather, and I don't know how, controversial figure in the last few years because of her stance on the Academy. More so the T section, or Hall T as I like to call it, of the Academy. Now, this woman has never come out of her mouth, as far as I know, to say that she was anti-Academy or like bashed them in any type of way. I'm sure she has a lot of fans of her work, of the books and the movies that are in the Academy, from every hall, from L to T alike. But for some reason, when it comes to that T, they seem to always try to push this woman's buttons, but she doesn't budge for shit. And she pushes back and manages to somehow piss them off for stuff that they shouldn't really even be mad about. Which brings us to this story right here. So you can see this is a picture of a individual who identifies as a trans woman, basically meaning they were biologically born as a man and then they quote unquote now live as a woman. But we can clearly see, even on Stevie Wonder could tell that this is not a biologically born woman. So if you see right here, this is posted from the Daily Mail. The title reads, J.K. Rowling is accused of cruelty as she mocks transgender football manager by comparing, and they put her. They didn't even do the pronoun thing. They didn't say them. They said her. They've already declared that this person is a her, even though they're not. And this is what we're talking about. It's crazy because I was on a live stream on another channel the other day. Well, not the other day. Well, by the time y'all see this video, it would have been like a couple of weeks since the live stream happened, where this was a top where we were talking about this, and then all of a sudden this pops right up. So it's interesting how just things just kind of fall into place. Where we were talking about how we live like in a very upside down world nowadays, when stuff like this has to somehow be praised and seen as functioning. But they called the person a her. That's what Daily Mail said. To a straight white middle-aged bloke. I said, whenever this stuff comes up, people be waiting to see what J.K. Rowling is going to say, because they already know by now that J.K. Rowling is not going to stand down or bend the knee on her stance when it comes to Hall T. This woman has gone on record so many times and said that, look, you can choose to live your life however it is that you want to. However, you are not going to sit up here and force me, a biologically born woman, to say that a biologically born man is the same as me. We don't share the same struggles at all. This person has never given birth. They will never go through that. They have never gone through a cycle. They'll never have to do anything with what it is to be a woman. I've always said what they're doing is they're using the cheat code. They live their life as a man, they have their fun as a man, and then all of a sudden they want to use a cheat code and say, now I'm living as a woman. And that's all she's saying. And they get so upset with her because she's telling the truth. This is the same thing, remember, that happened with Dave Chappelle with that Netflix special he had a couple years ago. The same exact thing. A lot of people, quiet as it's kept, and from what I've heard from people who are in the Academy, have always had an issue with Hall T. They said the L, the G, and the B was fine, but when the T got incorporated, it became very murky. I think that's probably the safest way I can say it. It became very murky. And it's been like that for a very long time. So she posted this up because, of course, they mentioned her, so why wouldn't she respond to it? She says, I didn't compare him to one. He is one. basically saying, why would you, like, they're saying, why would you compare this person who was living as a woman who we're choosing to refer to as her or she as a man? But JK is saying, why would I compare this man to a man when this person clearly is indeed a man? But it didn't stop there. So I'm going to show y'all or go over a couple of posts that she responded to when people tried to check her in the comments. But before I actually get to those comments, because there's actually only 2 of them that I saw, 2 that really stood out to me. This person right here said, how did we get to a point where speaking the truth is seen as wrong? And JK just simply replied back with one word: cowardice. That's the only response that you can really bring it and boil it down to. Like, literally, we live in a society where this is seen as, like, and ironically, that same live stream, what I was talking to you about before, we were talking about how nowadays society has become very, very soft, especially within the last decade. You have to cater to a lot of people's feelings. Mind you, the person that they're talking about in the story is overseas, where she's from, over in the UK or London or wherever it is she's from. That's not here in the States. So when we're talking about the Academy, you know, we always talking from a perspective of people here because this is where we live. You know, as far as people who are listening to me and watching me who live in the States. But this is something happening across the globe. But it's funny because whenever we talk about issues with the Academy, if we do, outside of the establishment known as the US, the other place we typically hear about it a lot is over there in the UK. I just find that to be very interesting. But I wanted to highlight this post first. Now let's go ahead and get into the 2 responses that she gave. So this first one right here, this person said, how can you look at her and see a man? I think you need glasses. First of all, if you can look at this person and think that this is a woman, like biologically born, then maybe you need more than just glasses. And it's crazy because this Laura person actually has glasses on in their picture. They might need a new prescription. To which JK Rowling responded with, my rose tinted gender goggles keeps malfunctioning, and unfortunately when I look at this sturdy father of 3, the lenses shattered. Now what's so funny is, because JK Rowling is an author, her wordplay is immaculate. Because I'm gonna be honest with you, if someone came to come at me like this Laura person came at her, I would not have responded in the way that she did. And like I said, I attribute that to her being an author, so her wordplay is a little bit, you know, different. But yes, this person that they're talking about was once, I think, married, and they have 3 children. And then all of a sudden, something like a light bulb just went off and said, you know what? I don't want to live like a dude anymore. Let me go out here and throw on a wig and call myself Lucy, which, by the way, that's what the person goes by now. They're 51 years of age and they go by Lucy. Lucy's something, but I know Lucy is the first name. 51, and they decided to do this. I don't know how long they've been living like this, but based on that picture we saw, they haven't been living like this very long. It looks like they just made this decision probably within at least the last year. So we have this person, Laura, who wants to be in denial and thinks that they're looking at a woman. Okay, fine. And by the way, y'all, this is a PC woman that's, you know, saying this, because a lot of people think, oh, it's mainly just black women that support this. And no, I'm here to tell you right now, it's women across the spectrum who lack common sense. Now let me show you the other one. Now this response is not necessarily a clapback or a pushback against what JK Rowling said, but this person wants to act dumb too and asks the same question, how can you tell? I'm like, how can you not? Like, really? Like, it's like people are trying to play dumb for the sake of playing dumb. It's like they know what they see, but they have literally put a mental block in their own brain or shut it off to try to be willfully ignorant, and they just end up looking and sounding remedial. To which JK Rowling responded with, psychic powers, that and the fact he fathered 3 kids with his wife. So the thing is, if this person is indeed a woman like this person who acts, how can you tell, and that lower person who told her that she thinks that JK Rowling needs new glasses, If this person fathered 3 children, how were they able to do that if they are indeed a quote unquote woman? Because 2 women cannot have a child, just like 2 men cannot, at least not biologically. You know, just like when we had the quote unquote trans man. If y'all remember the story I did a couple years ago about the biological man who married a quote unquote trans man, someone who was biologically born a woman, and then they ended up getting an operation to look like a man, and then they got pregnant, and then they gave birth, and in the hospital they had them listed down as mother, and it was a whole controversy because they got upset because they didn't have them listed down as father. I'm glad the hospital didn't budge. So that's how all of this is playing out. And like I said, when you look at this right here, they're trying to make it seem like J.K. Rowling, who is completely living inside of her head, like she's literally completely sane with this. They're trying to make it seem like she's wrong. And again, they've been coming at her for so long about this, and they're so mad that they can't stop her. Like, I remember when they first started to try to attack her, and none of that worked. None of it worked. I mean, they came out in droves at one point and they kept trying to cancel her, and it just didn't work. And then it comes out again, and then as time went on, I think they started to realize or get the hint that you're not going to cancel this woman because y'all know what she's saying is right. Y'all just upset for the sake of wanting to be upset at this point. And the thing is, they want everybody to be engulfed in this bubble that they're in, and nobody's falling for it. Now, keep this in mind, y'all. This is J.K. Rowling, a British white woman who is extremely wealthy, has been for so long, ever since she released that first book. And you know, she gets all the royalties from the books. I'm sure she gets a cut from the movies as well, because that's technically her property that they adapted from her book. Do you think that people are going to stop reading her books? You think people are going to stop watching those movies? And then they had the spin-off series with the Fantastic Beasts, and I think they're supposed to be doing another Harry Potter something somewhere in the future. She gets royalties off of all of that. This woman is set for life. She could care less if you try to cancel her because of not necessarily her opinion, because her opinion is actually based in fact. She knows what the deal is. I know what it is. The people who are watching this knows what it is. But you got people out there like this person asking, how can you tell? And the other one saying she needs new glasses, that want to live in La La Land and play pretend. Y'all can do that all you want to, but it won't change the fact. You can say anyone is this, that, and the third, but if they're not, then they're just simply not. And keep this also in mind. This particular group got a lot of protection. They have a lot of protection. Like I told you, domino effect. One domino falls, the rest will start to fall with it until the last domino falls. So there it is. Shout out to J.K. Rowling for keeping it real, like as she always does. And you know what's so crazy? It's become such a running joke at this point that whenever something like this pops up, people literally flock to her page to see what she's going to say about it, just to see what her response is. And she be clocking them every single time with her responses. Now, I'm sure there might be some more responses down the line, but I don't have to go through all of them. Y'all pretty much get the gist of it just off of those 2 alone that I just went through. So shout out to her. I can't even knock it. I really can't. She stood on her morals, and she's not backing down, and she shouldn't have to. It's interesting that I ended up bringing up Harry Potter and, like, you know how much of a fan of the series I am, and I watch them, and I will still watch them. I will still continue to watch them. And then I came across this as it pertains to the story overall, where you have the actor Daniel Radcliffe, who played, of course, Harry Potter, and he basically says in this article from IndieWire, he says, I don't owe J.K. Rowling my support anymore, basically because of the stances that she's taken as far as what she has said. Now, I think he's probably just dealt with it for as long as he could, and he felt like now he has completely felt a way to cut ties with her. And I'm saying to myself this, I know that they're coming out with some more Harry Potter based movies and everything like that, and they're going to have J.K. Rowling there attached in some kind of a way, because like there's still an adaptation of her work. I don't know if she's been releasing any more Harry Potter based books or not, but if it has Harry Potter there in some capacity, she's still tied to it some way, somehow. So my question was, if he's cutting ties with her, how is he still going to be working on these films? Like, that was a question that I had, and ironically, as I was perusing through the article, I ended up receiving my answer. So when I scrolled down, this is what I found. It says, while Radcliffe has cut ties with Rowling, Warner Brothers Discovery has not, and has doubled down on working with the controversial author. And they're talking about Warner Brothers Discovery. They said they're not cutting ties with her. So at the end of the day, he can, if he chose to leave, he can leave, but they're not leaving, and they're the ones holding the money. They're the ones holding the bag. And they know she's going to bring in money regardless, no matter what her stance is on the situation is or not. They know she's going to bring in money. And he says an upcoming Harry Potter series on Max will adapt all 7 books with more prequel films in the works as well. And I'm going to be completely honest with you. His career, in my opinion, really hasn't gone as far as one would think, considering that this Harry Potter series, this saga, was the trajectory of his entire career. Like, this was his first, now I wouldn't say his first project, but his first mainstream big project, breakthrough project that sent him out there to the world, from the other side of the world at that. So he can say that he's cut ties with her altogether, but the thing is, if they want to continue making them Harry Potter films and they, want to use him, the question is, what is he going to say? Is he going to say yes, or is he going to say no? Something just tells me he might actually say yes. And then he would end up having to work in proximity with her in some capacity regardless. Now, if he says no, that might actually surprise me. But I'm going to be completely honest with you. Whether you cut ties from her or not, you got to admit that this woman is the reason why your career is the way it is right now. And I think he's actually mentioned that. So I'll give him some credit on that. But at the end of the day, where is his career now? I'm being completely honest with you. What is the last thing that you've seen him in? I've heard rumors that he's supposed to be like a variant of Wolverine in Deadpool and Wolverine or something to that effect, but that's just a rumor. I'll believe it when I see it. But even with that, it's just few and far in between. You would think that after a movie that you've been in since 2001 all the way up to 2011, something like, I think 2011, I think it was, is when the last one. So you're talking about a franchise that's been around that lasted 10 years. One would think that you would be getting roles like crazy, but he really wasn't. He's really not. So that's just my take on it. Now, this post right here is coming from the next day, and the only reason I know about this is because one of my subscribers actually sent this to me. Otherwise, this part wouldn't even be in here, but I said I have to go ahead and add it in for even more, for additional purposes of where I would say I disagree with something that she did say as it pertains to this situation. Now, while I did agree with her in the first part of everything she said, in which I heard, I agree with her on that. But this is the next day, and she got into it with 2 other men. As you can see, one of them name is Jonathan and the other one's name is Landon. And she made this post, as you can see right there at the top, says calling a man, so on and so forth. Y'all can read it for yourself. But my issue that a lot of black people had an issue with, which is the part that my subscriber had a problem with, was the last response that she gave that's right underneath this guy Landon. She said, does this apply to any other demographic? Landon: do I get to be black if I like Motown and fancy myself in cornrows? What if I claim the authentic me has always been black and you're being racist to me? Would that be okay, or would you find it ludicrous and deeply offensive? This goes back to the point that many of us who are black, especially black Americans, have an issue with. And we would definitely talk about black Americans because she mentioned Motown and cornrows, which we all know is a foundational black American creation. Definitely a creation as far as Motown and popularity, definitely with the cornrows. So the thing of the matter is she could have picked any other demographic. She even mentioned any other demographic, but she went specifically to black people. I see what she was trying to do, but one thing that we as black people get tired of is how we get lumped into these situations that have nothing to do with us. That's why when y'all saw me do my live when I was talking about ramen noodles when he was feeling like he was getting, attacked, quote unquote, by Ann Coulter. And when that Ted Lieu guy checked him on that, he ends up talking about, quote unquote, black on Asian violence. It's like, why did you even bring us up into the situation when you didn't even have to? But again, it's that punching down on black people. Again, what do I say? At the foundation of every person's grift is the degradation of black people, specifically black Americans. So while I do agree with what J.K. Rowling said initially in what I talked about in the first part before the break of this video, and to insert this part, I don't agree with her mentioning bringing up black people to try to drive home her point in how she feels about that particular community and the things that they're doing. She could have mentioned any other group, and you notice that whenever something like this happens, they never bring up any other group. They never bring up the South of the Bordarians. They never bring up Asians. They don't bring up Native Americans or any other group that's non-black. They always default to bringing black people up in these equations, in these examples, when it's like we didn't even ask to be brought up in there. That just shows you how, like we like to say, we live rent-free in their head, because we are the first people they decide to go to when it comes to situations such as these. So while I do agree with the first what she said, like in the first part of this video, and I completely understand with her what she's saying, because she wasn't wrong with that. This part right here that you see my cursor going around, that's the part where she lost me.